It was just another ordinary evening. The sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow across the quiet street, and everything seemed perfectly normal. She had returned home from work, expecting the familiar calm of her apartment, the hum of the refrigerator, the soft ticking of the clock. Little did she know that her life was about to take an unimaginable turn. A knock at the door echoed through the hallway, sharp and unexpected. At first she thought it might be a neighbor, perhaps a delivery. But something about the way the knocking persisted felt different. Urgent, deliberate. When she opened the door, a stranger stood there, tall and composed, eyes holding an intensity that immediately made her uneasy. The stranger's voice was calm, almost rehearsed as they said, "I'm here because I believe I'm your long-lost sibling." She froze, her mind scrambling to understand. A sibling? She thought she knew her family completely, every member, every story, every secret, or so she had believed. Her heart pounded as she stared at this stranger, unsure whether to feel fear, curiosity, or disbelief. The stranger handed her a worn envelope, the edges frayed, the contents carefully preserved. Inside were photographs she had never seen, some old and faded, and a small collection of letters addressed to her. Every word in the letters seemed strangely familiar, resonating with a memory she couldn't place. The stranger spoke again, recounting a story so intricate it felt both impossible and painfully real. A story of a childhood separated by circumstances beyond anyone's control, of parents divided, of misunderstandings that had kept them apart. Each word chipped away at her skepticism, leaving her with a gnawing curiosity she could not ignore. The next days were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. She could not sleep, could not stop thinking about the stranger and the life-altering claim they had made. She found herself retracing memories, old photographs, and forgotten letters, trying desperately to reconcile the reality she knew with the possibility that she had been living only half a life. Every detail the stranger had shared seemed to match fragments of forgotten stories she barely remembered. Questions that had never seemed important now felt critical. Who had she really been? Who had been missing from her life? The sense of normalcy that had surrounded her for so long had been shattered, replaced by a fragile thread of suspicion and hope. When she finally confronted her family, emotions ran high. Faces that had once been familiar now seemed strange as she questioned parents and relatives about the stranger's claims. The initial reactions were disbelief, confusion, even anger. "How could this be true?" her mother asked, voice trembling, while her father avoided her gaze, silent and tense. Family secrets long buried began to surface in awkward, painful bursts. She discovered that there had indeed been an infant sibling, separated under circumstances no one had wanted to discuss. Memories of hospital visits, whispered conversations, and distant relatives now fell into a shocking new light. Every revelation drew her deeper into the story, leaving her unable to retreat back into her old life. The stranger, meanwhile, was patient and persistent. They shared more proof, more details. Letters written decades ago, photographs with subtle but undeniable connections, even small tokens of a childhood that seemed to echo her own. Every interaction, every moment together, brought them closer to an undeniable truth. And yet there was always that tension, that nagging question. Could this really be true, or was she being drawn into a carefully constructed lie? Each day became a mixture of anticipation and dread, as if the answers she sought were perpetually just out of reach. Eventually she decided to investigate for herself. She traced back the stories, contacted old family friends, and uncovered records that had long been hidden. With each discovery, the pieces began to align in ways she had never imagined possible. She found herself torn between joy, disbelief, and fear. The possibility that this stranger could indeed be her sibling was both exhilarating and terrifying. Past grievances, old regrets, and family dynamics that had seemed unchangeable now seemed open to a completely new chapter. Finally, after weeks of searching and questioning, the truth emerged. The stranger was, in fact, her long-lost sibling. The moment of recognition was overwhelming, a mixture of relief, happiness, and profound sadness for all the lost years. Tears flowed freely as they embraced, the weight of decades of separation pressing down in that single poignant moment. Stories were shared, laughter mingled with tears, and slowly, they began to piece together a family that had been incomplete for far too long. Yet even in this reunion there were remnants of the past that would never fully vanish. Memories of loneliness, of absence, and of what might have been. In the weeks that followed, life adjusted to this new reality. The presence of a long-lost sibling brought both joy and complication. Relationships shifted, hearts healed, and old wounds were acknowledged. The stranger had become family, but the story left an indelible mark on everyone involved. The experience was a stark reminder of how fragile life is, how secrets can shape our lives without us ever realizing, and how even the most ordinary evening can transform into something unforgettable. It was a story of hope, doubt, and the human capacity to endure, forgive, and embrace the unknown. And so she learned that life is never as predictable as it seems. That one knock on the door, one stranger, and one unexpected truth could redefine everything she had believed about her past, her family, and herself. The reunion was a beginning, not an ending. A chance to rebuild, to connect, and to accept the twists of fate that life often delivers. In the end, she understood that sometimes, the strangers who appear at our doors bring the most profound truths, the ones that change not only our lives but our very understanding of who we are.